Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. I know there's many other things that you could be doing, especially on this beautiful evening. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone, if you could turn your cameras and microphones off during the presentation to help out those with poor internet connection, that would be very helpful. Staff and council have worked hard to prepare a document based on what we have heard from county residents through requests from residents to staff to the many different engagement tools that we have used over the past couple of years. Today's meeting is an opportunity to update you on what has been changed in the draft MDP based on what we've heard. This is your opportunity to provide your feedback to staff and council on how you feel about what is being proposed in the draft MDP. Your opinion will help shape the future of the county. So my name is Dustin Bisson. I'm a planner here at Clearwater County. I'll introduce some of the other staff members that are joining us tonight. We have Holly Bealey and Amber Williams joining us. They're both development officers here. And then we have Liz Armitage. She is a consultant with Vicinia Planning and Engagement. Councillors that we have in attendance, we have Councillor Graham and Reeve Darrell Lougheed. So just to outline the process really quick, Liz is going to start off with a short presentation. Once the presentation is complete, we'll go into a question and answer period. And that's when we'll take your questions and any comments that you'd like to make on the proposal. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Liz.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Dustin. I'm going to start by sneezing, actually. Excuse me, world's worst timing. And I do want to just quickly say that my dog sometimes barks at random leaves falling from trees. So if she barks really loudly, I will try to mute it really quickly so that you guys don't have to listen to that delightful sound. And so I'm just going to jump right in with the presentation. And again, thank everyone for joining tonight. As you are aware, we are doing open houses right now from August 3rd to 11th, plus a new one since we had to cancel one last week, which I will discuss more in detail, but it is August 17th. And we also have the online survey occurring right now with comments due on August 19th. So you can see the QR code on your screen right now. It's also available on our website, and we do have hard copies at the county office should you wish to use a hard copy to fill it in. So what is a municipal development plan? I always like to say an MDP is the highest level document that guides the future of land use and physical changes within a municipality. In this case, Clearwater County. It's like a blueprint. It provides a 30-year-ish, 25-year, 30-year, 35-year-ish vision for the type of community that residents and ratepayers, council desire. And policies are included in the document, such as land use, protecting natural environment, and many other content is in it. The MDP is used by administration and council in assessing more detailed plans, such as area structure plans and outline plans. So it's the most, in many ways, it's one of the most important documents because it sets the playing field for everybody in the county. And why is it important? As I said, it guides and directs the future physical growth. And there's many topics. So to give a bit more of a comprehensive list, there's preservation of significant environmental features. There's protecting special places and providing recreation opportunities. Expectations related to rural residential development, the role and future of hamlets, economic development and the role of various economic sectors, infrastructure such as roads, railways, airports, water and wastewater, stormwater management, and modern telecommunications. I know I've already heard tonight about poor broadband and poor connections, so it's an important element to be considering in anything we do. We also look at working with our partners to service the community. So partners in healthcare, education, emergency response, and protective services. And then we also look to our relations with other communities. So those that we share borders with, and the province with respect to any of the land use planning matters. And so this is one of my favorite charts that I ever talk about. This outlines where the Municipal Development Plan, which is indicated in yellow, fits in with all the documents that are required. At the very top of the chart is the provincial legislation. So the Municipal Government Act, the Subdivision and Development Regulations, and many other provincial regulations as well. They're at the top of the hierarchy. They set out what has to happen and how things have to happen within each municipality in the province. And all municipalities are treated the same. So the provincial legislation tells us that you have to have an intermunicipal collaboration framework and an intermunicipal development plan. So up here, provincial legislation, next layer starts to get into how we work with our neighbors. Then we get into the MDP, which is how we work within our boundaries. The MDP, Municipal Development Plan, sorry, is the top level of document within the county. And so everything in this B has to match what's above it. So we can't have an MDP that doesn't match the intermunicipal development plan, for example, or an intermunicipal development plan that doesn't match the provincial legislation. So once we get a municipal development plan approved, any area structure plan, area redevelopment plan, and the land use bylaw all have to match it. And then any subdivision has to match all of those that are above it. So, and as we get to the point, as you can see here, we get to an increasing detail. So I always use the analogy of it's a plane landing. As you come in closer to the bottom, you see more and more detail versus when you're up in the sky. So one thing about this process is it's been a process for sure. And we've done our best to advertise this set of public engagement. So we have 6 open houses. We've already completed 2 sessions in Leslieville. We attempted to complete a virtual meeting on August 4th. It was unfortunately canceled and has been rescheduled. And so then we also did the Nordag meeting on the weekend. And we are going into tonight's virtual meeting. And then next week we have in-person meetings in Rocky Mountain House and Caroline. And then on August 17th from 7 to 8:30 p.m., we are going to have another virtual Zoom meeting. So anyone who couldn't attend the one tonight and was unable to attend on the 4th due to the unfortunate circumstances will have another opportunity to join a virtual meeting. So in order to engage with the public, we have a survey out right now. I've already mentioned it and I'll mention it again. I want to plug that survey as much as I can in order to get as many forms filled out and get as much input as we can. But we've also done radio advertising. We've done 2 videos that are available on the county's website. We've been to 2 Marketplace on Main events. We've had promotional posters at local community events. We've also had newspaper and social media advertising and website advertising. So we've tried to reach as many people as we possibly can in as many ways as we possibly can. For example, I know I don't read the newspaper, but I would notice a website advertisement. So that's why we've gone to such various forms of advertising. So some of you are aware that this project was initiated back in 2019. Municipal development plans often take time to prepare. They're not necessarily the quickest document to prepare, but they're important, and taking that time is important. So when council initiated the request for the MDP review in 2019, administration began working with a steering committee and working with the initial basically getting initial input. That started in 2020. And lo and behold, COVID changed some plans, unfortunately. And so we did virtual open houses in 2021. And then we did in-person houses as well in 2021 when we were able to. And then we worked with council on to determine direction on how to proceed. And so here we are in 2020, where we have obviously advertised the open houses. We are currently executing the open houses. And ultimately, we are looking to be back in front of council for a public hearing and the approval process in November, with adoption and approval happening in the early new year. So one thing that's unique about an MDP is that I guess the very premise of an MDP is unique for each municipality because it looks at the lands within the municipality. So as you look at the county in particular, you'll see on this map that we have an extensive amount of crown land in green. We also have deeded land, which is in yellow. And then we have a combination of hamlets. We have development nodes, urban areas. And then we also have First Nations and forestry district and primary and secondary highways as well. So we have a very diverse and large county with a lot of perspectives amongst all of the different types of land use planning that exists. So in drafting the Municipal Development Plan, 4 guiding principles were identified. We as administration view the 4 principles as being equal and 4 puzzle pieces that need to fit together. We don't see a hierarchy. We see relationships that are ever evolving and working to keep them in balance. So the four in no particular order are environmental stewardship, so healthy, natural, and working landscapes able to sustain wildlife, natural functions, and human activities. We also have economic prosperity, diverse mix of economic activities and sectors providing employment and wealth creation. Quality of life, being a third one of the guiding principles, is the opportunities to live, work, and play and achieve fulfillment. And then we have the community social growth, which is chances to explore, meet, and grow strong connections with people and places, and have a variety of living options and choices for different household needs, large or small family, lifestyle preference, rural or semi-rural setting, and stages of life, retirees or young families. We want to be able to provide and accommodate everybody from the time they're born until the retiree stage of life as well. So in preparing the MDP that is a draft form in front of you, and I want to reiterate and emphasize that it is a draft, it's not final yet. We are looking for additional inputs. And so there are 3 main areas that we've identified that we are looking to kind of go over tonight. And for each of these, I'm going to start by talking about the current approach. So what is in the current MDP from 2010? What considerations and issues were identified through this process? And then what the proposed approach is in the draft MDP. So the first of those is subdivision of land. And there are 2 parts of subdivision of land that I'll talk about, but we'll start with the first one, which is just the general idea of subdividing land. The current approach is that it largely favors the preservation of agricultural land. Policies for subdivisions involving less than 3 parcels, meaning it is not a multi-lot subdivision, which can be subject to different policies, are summarized as 1 parcel is allowed out of a previously unsubdivided section or largest agricultural parcel, and subdivision by way of natural fragmentation may be approved. So that's not open to everyone. It depends on the topography of your land. So the considerations that were identified was that there has been a demand for additional subdivision options. The ag industry is diversifying. Underutilization of farmland for agricultural production and an increased desire for estate planning subdivisions. So the proposed approach in the draft MDP that we're presenting tonight is to allow up to 3 titles per quarter section. So it actually is very similar to the current MDP approach, except that 3rd title, which in the current MDP is only available by way of natural fragmentation, is now available to everybody. We are looking at allowing up to 20 acres to be used for residential purposes and allowing up to 25 second parcels out per year with a 3-year trial period. It removes the option for that fragmented subdivision. The second component of subdivision is multi-lot residential subdivision. So the current approach is that multi-lot residential subdivision development is considered on poor ag land. An area structure plan or outline plan must be prepared prior to the creation of a multi-lot residential subdivision, and communal water and wastewater services need to be provided by the developer. The considerations that were identified were that there's only been the creation of one multi-lot subdivision since 2010. There are significant costs associated with providing communal services. Private wastewater services have improved significantly since 2010, and there's less impact on agricultural land by allowing for compatible uses. The proposed approach in the MDP, based on the considerations, is that an ASP or area structure plan or outline plan must be prepared prior to the creation of a multi-lot residential subdivision. It will allow for the creation of multi-lot residential subdivisions within half a mile of paved county or provincial road and provide water and wastewater systems, private water and wastewater systems may be acceptable. The next item we wanted to discuss is, and this is item number 2, is aggregate and resource extraction. The current approach in the MDP is that new residential estate subdivisions cannot be located within 0.5 kilometers or 0.5 miles of areas considered by the county to be surface resource extraction areas. It discourages the encroachment of incompatible uses. Some considerations around the aggregate and resource extraction is that there's valuable non-renewable resources there that are needed to build our communities and our society. Extraction is an interim land use and required reclamation of the site. There is compatibility issues. There are concerns that all parties should be able to be heard through the process. And there's a desire for reciprocal setbacks. So the proposed draft MDP is looking at, is influenced by the adoption of Bill 48. So if you remember that that chart, the very top is provincial legislation. Bill 48 is a new piece of legislation. And it requires that all appeals in which there is a provincial interest must be heard by the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, formerly the Municipal Government Board, as opposed to the Municipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, or SDAB. So based on this new process, planning staff does not foresee any time savings if council decides to follow a DC approach. So a DC approach, I want to take a second to explain that. It is a direct control land use designation identified in the land use bylaw. So what is being proposed is that any resource or aggregate extraction must go through a land use bylaw amendment process. To any new one, let me rephrase that, must go through this process. So it's a land use bylaw amendment, and it would turn it to a direct control district, DC. And therefore, council would then be the one who decides on any permits and development permits, which would mean that there is no appeal, and it would keep our decision local rather than sending it to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. And through a public hearing process, all parties are able to address council and express any concerns if they have any. So it opens up that ability for people to be able to express their concerns directly to council. Private campgrounds and private recreational uses are the last one of the main areas we've identified. The current approach is that we focus on large-scale campgrounds and private recreational uses only. So considerations that have been identified is a lack of clear policies oriented towards the creation and management of small-scale campgrounds and private recreational uses. Current use of ag land for recreational pursuits. So our proposed draft that's before you now supports the development of small-scale campgrounds and private recreational uses at appropriate locations. It supports small-scale tourism businesses in agricultural areas and large-scale tourism businesses in designated commercial and recreation areas. It also acknowledges that small-scale campgrounds and private recreational uses are key components of the social and economic capital within the county. And this brings us to the end of our presentation, our formal presentation. I do want to again draw your attention to the survey. We would love more input. The more input we can get, as far as I'm concerned, the better. And this is just a draft. So we are looking for that feedback both tonight at all of the meetings and then through the survey as well. So please feel free to tell us anything that you love, hate, are indifferent about. Anything that you want to talk to us about, we're here to listen to tonight. So with that, I will turn it back to Dustin, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Liz. So now we're going to get into our question and answer portion of the meeting. I would just remind everyone, please be respectful to those that are talking. If a participant does become disrespectful, they will be muted and possibly removed from the meeting. Like all of the previous meetings, we do want to hear from the people that haven't been able to attend one of these meetings yet first. So how we're going to do this is if you could please raise your hand to speak, we will acknowledge you. So once we've called your name, please feel free to turn on your camera and microphone and ask your question or make your comment. So to raise your hand, for those of you joining by way of a laptop, just go down and click the raise hand option. If you're joining us with an Android or iPhone, click the more option and click raise hand. So we'll get started with questions. Liz, could you maybe stop sharing your screen? Not seeing any hands go up here, so. Okay. Okay, I do see a hand up. Katrina Klotz, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not starting my video because my camera's not working, but Dustin, we were just wondering, like with the 25 second parcels out being approved in 1 year, what do you guys, like what kind of math have you done on the possibility, like how many applications would you foresee there being, and how do you determine which ones get approved?
So yeah, sure. Basically it'll be on a first come first served basis, Katrina. I guess when it comes to the 25 number, we just looked at the number of subdivisions that we typically see on an average year, and that's the number that we that council and staff were comfortable moving ahead with. So that was approximately 25 a year. 2022 has not been a normal year. That subdivision number is probably significantly higher than 25, probably closer to 45 or 50. It'll probably be closer to 45 or 50 by the end of the year. Go ahead, Katrina.
Okay, so do you guys foresee like an influx of just everybody applying as soon as it's approved, or at what point can people start applying? Because everybody that has a quarter section with one parcel out now has the opportunity.
Yeah, and that was something that we were concerned about, was the influx of applications that we could potentially see. You know, are we going to see 25 on January 2nd when we open the doors? That's hard to say. It's going to be a 3-year trial period, and council recognizes that they will have to come back after 3 years to update that part of the policy. Go ahead, Katrina.
Okay, and so let's say we apply, we're the 26th person, do we get on the list for the next year, or does it restart on the anniversary, or how does that work?
It would restart on the anniversary. We would probably, we would recommend that you hold off, and apply the next year. Any other questions or comments? Oh, Katrina, go ahead.
Me again. Okay, Brad, what was you asked the question?
Is that number set in stone, or what happens if the response for the first year, just for whatever reason, is more significant than you thought? Could that number be adjusted a little bit?
Council could bring the MDP policy back and consider revisions. They could open it up at any time if they seen a need for that.
But that's what we're going through right now, right? Like, it would be a process.
That's right. Yeah, it wouldn't be a how do I put that? It wouldn't necessarily be the type of process that we're seeing now, where we have numerous open houses. There would absolutely be opportunity for public consultation on that. However, I would say it would be probably a quicker process than what we're going through. Janice, I see your hand up.
Does this decision take into consideration how many vacant acreages are currently existing and for sale within the county?
Yes, it does. There are, we are aware that there are a number of vacant acreages in Clearwater County. At the end of the day, that might be just a simple case of somebody has subdivided it off for family and they're just hanging on to it. There are obviously acreages for sale as well, but what people choose to do with those acreages, and how long they hold on to it, that's up to them. Janice?
Yeah, I guess I was meaning more in terms of subdivision here, like out at Ferrier, there's Sponbergs have many lots, and I think the Hunkies there in Ridgeland Hills have many lots, and there's Diamond Willow Estates has many lots, and that's kind of where I was going for. And then I have a second question too.
Sure.
Is part of the motivation to increase the tax rolls?
No, part of the motivation is based on what we've heard from ratepayers over the last number of years. Planning and development staff have heard there's been significant demand for additional subdivision options, additional parcels out. Your previous question on the number of parcels that are the number of acreages available. What I would suggest there, in dealing with a few realtors in the area, one that participated in our meeting the other night, or the other afternoon in Leslieville, she had actually made a comment that the current inventory of acreages is actually fairly low in Clearwater County. Ellen, I seen you put your hand up. I'm not sure. Did you have a question? Ellen McKenzie?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I have bad internet connection. I'm in the country. I was just wondering about, so in the draft, so if people are putting in sewers, what size of acreages would they have to be? 20 acres? I know there's been issues with acreages, like say in Woodland Estates that are 3 acres that had ended up having sewers, but then ended up they're not legal. Wondered what's going to happen in the future with that.
Sure. So I guess, are you asking specifically for multi-lot subdivisions or just in general, on it?
Just in general for acreages, yeah, I not really whatever, because if your land isn't proper for sewage, you can't have a sewer, right?
Right, right. So, typically in dealing with septic systems, and of course, Clearwater County is an accredited, agency when it comes to septic systems. However, the subdivision development regs specify that an acre is enough developable area to have your private services. So typically, most of the parcel sizes would have to be over an acre in size to I guess, have a legal septic system in place.
Because some, like, we don't have a subdivision, but we put a second residence for a son at the back, and they told us when we put that sewer in that it would have to be 10 acres or more because of the way the land is to drain properly from the pump out system.
Okay.
That came
So-
from the county. So I'm wondering how they can do like 3-acre parcels or 4-acre parcels if it's the same land as we're sitting on. How do they expect to drain that properly without contamination, I guess?
We can answer that, Dustin, if you want.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
We actually have a septic system design and installation company in the county. And what you're talking about is a certain type of system, the open discharge system. So that one has to meet very specific, well, they all do, but the setbacks for that system make it so that it's basically a minimum of 10 acres. And even then, you often don't meet the setbacks. So with a different system, such as a field or a mound or some of the unfortunately more expensive, but also more compact systems with the lesser setbacks, they can certainly be put in on a smaller lot.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Dustin-
Ellen, just speaking to the setbacks on, just for a reference point, an open discharge has to be 90 meters from a new property boundary. Whereas a septic field or a mound, I believe, can be within 3 meters of a property boundary. So
Okay.
it's just the type of system that was probably in place in your son's situation.
Yeah.
And if I can jump in,
Oh, Liz, go ahead.
okay, if I can jump in, what I would say is that at the time of subdivision and development permit for a non-multi-lot, the applicant would have to demonstrate how they're going to provide servicing. And for a multi-lot subdivision, the applicant would have to indicate how they're going to do that at an area structure plan or outline plan stage. So that is part of the review process of any subdivision and eventual development that has to be done and is something the county would require.
Okay. I do have another question, if it's okay.
Sure.
So we live on a quarter, or 147 acres. When we purchased it 40 years ago, there was 2 acreages already out. And so if we ever wanted to subdivide this, we cannot take another subdivision, right? Because that would be 4.
That is correct. There is a provision, in certain circumstances, there could be a provision, where you could apply, for a land use amendment, and that would be a 4th title in the quarter section. There may be certain circumstances where that's considered.
Yeah, we're kind of doing like estate planning type thing, So, yeah, okay,
Okay,
thank you.
you bet. Katrina?
Can you expand on that land use amendment to allow a 4th parcel?
Sure. So typically, when it comes to a 4th parcel out of a quarter section, or I guess right now, a 3rd parcel out of a quarter section, typically we only see them come in for a business operation or something along those lines. So you would have to apply for a land use amendment to rezone a portion of the property. And once that went through council, if council felt that the application had merit and it was approved, you could subdivide based on that area that was rezoned.
Okay, I see. I have another question, if that's
Sure.
okay, but see Ellen has her, okay.
Oh, I should have taken mine down, sorry.
Okay. Can we presume that all of council is on board with the new MDP or not? Or is that something that's,
Well, that's part of this process. They want to hear from you, and that's how they're going to formulate their opinion on the proposed draft. Did you have another question, Katrina?
sorry, I just didn't put my hand down, did you?
No.
Okay. Additional questions?
Yeah, one more question, Dustin. If this doesn't get approved, do we just go back or do we redraft something else entirely? And what happens in the meantime? I guess just the 2010 applies in the meantime, but can we still fragment parcels if it doesn't get approved?
Until this document is approved in one form or another, yeah, the existing 2010 MDP would be in place. That's what we would have to follow. You know, I would say council is very adamant to have a new MDP for Clearwater County as soon as possible. So I believe they're wanting to move forward and get this process finished up as soon as possible.
Okay,
I would add to Dustin's comment that the Municipal Government Act, the provincial legislation mandates that every municipality has to have an MDP. So Clearwater County has to keep the current one if the new one is not approved. But nothing stops council from saying, okay, well, we don't want this section approved, or continue on with the rest of it or something like that.
okay, that's another question I had. She very nicely, Liz, outlined the, I believe, 3 main parts of the changes to the MDP. Are there any other changes or was that basically it?
That basically summarizes from the I guess previous draft version of the MDP. Those are the 3 main changes. The other, I guess, major change from the current MDP into the first draft of this was we did give agriculture its own policy section in the MDP. So it ended up, instead of being simply part of the subdivision process and something to consider, we've given agricultural production its own part of the MDP document. You'll notice on the MDP, or within the MDP, there's a few puzzle pieces in the top corner. What council was striving for was to say that everything in this MDP fits together and feeds off one another. Additional questions?
With the private campgrounds or private recreation, I didn't really understand the direction that was going. Are you is it in favor of them? Is it promoting them? Is it not promoting them?
So the idea there is to allow more options for smaller scale campgrounds. Currently, the MDP, at the end of the day, the MDP doesn't have a lot of say when it comes to campground development in Clearwater County. What's going to end up happening is once the MDP is adopted, we would come back in the land use bylaw and clean up some of those policies around campgrounds. But what I would say is that this MDP would favorably consider smaller scale options for camping. Right now, we know there are a number of landowners that use their quarter sections and parts of their property for as small campgrounds for friends and family to come out. You know, we recognize that that's happening in Clearwater County. Essentially, what we're trying to say is, okay, if you're putting infrastructure in, you need a development permit. However, if you're just having friends and family out in your field on a weekend here and there, not necessarily. You can do that without development approval. Right now, if somebody was camping on their property within the county, and if somebody was to complain, Clearwater County would have to go after them with for some infractions to the land use bylaw.
Okay, that's interesting.
Additional questions, guys? Susan, go ahead.
Hi, I don't really have a question, but I have some comments.
Sure.
All I can hear outside at my home here is the sound of hay binds and silage and all that kind of stuff going on. And I'm kind of interested why on earth the county would pick this time to be able having these meetings when most people are in the field. I find that really disrespectful to the farmers, that this change in the subdivision law would have the most effect on their livelihoods. And the other thing I'd like to say is in the 2010 MDP, there was 3 statements in there that are no longer in the MDP. There's one section that says they want to conserve agriculture land and support agriculture land uses. That's no longer there. There's another section that reiterates conserve agriculture land. And Clearwater County shall consider agriculture as the primary land use within the county. I'm kind of curious why that's no longer in there.
Yeah, so as previously stated, Susan, we've given agriculture its own section. We feel that that it plays a major role in Clearwater County. However, the focus is basically to have everything kind of feed off of each other in the MDP. So this would the proposed draft would not put anything above anything else. As per the timing of this, you're absolutely right. There is we recognize that this is obviously a busy season right now. However, council has made this priority to have this document to get it dealt with. And they want to see this this dealt with sooner rather than later. That's how important they feel about this. Go ahead, Susan.
Okay, if with an important document like this, I don't think we should just be pushing it through just because you want to get it done. When I think that is not a good reason to get something done.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Additional comments, questions? Susan?
So another thing I found interesting in the 2010 draft was in their section there, they had review the MDP at least every 6 years. So if that was in that draft and that wasn't done, then I don't think that makes it a big emergency now, because apparently it wasn't done within the 6 years.
Yeah, speaking to that, it has been 12 years since we've reviewed the MDP. What's being proposed in this draft is that we look at the MDP every 10 years. Um, 12 years is a significant time to wait to consider new policies. However, we've been going through this process for the last since really the start of 2020. Of course, COVID has hampered this process, and council has recognized and indicated that it's a priority for them.
And I would add, Dustin, that just because the MDP says an amount of time, at any point, council can choose to reevaluate it. If something drastic has changed in the county, there's nothing that stops council from choosing to open it up sooner. And even residents can apply to make changes to it. Depending on what they're doing, they might want to go through that process. Doesn't mean it would be approved, but it means that you have the right to make an application.
Janice, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, I'm just curious, are the comments made at the open houses and on these Zoom meetings, are they going to be considered, or is the 4 questions on the survey the only feedback?
The questions and comments brought forward at the meeting here tonight will be considered by council. We will summarize what we've heard, and we will present that to council for their review. The survey as well will be considered by council.
Thank you.
Dustin, can you hear me? It's Marianne.
You bet.
I don't see a hand, so I just have to chime in here.
Sure.
First of all, I want to reiterate Susan's concerns with the timing, and I'm just looking at the number of people that are taking part here, and it's very, very minimal tonight, unfortunately. The other thing I want to do is Janice asked the question of the number of acreages for sale in Clearwater County, and I noted this at the meeting that Dustin referred to, where the realtor spoke and said that the number wasn't enough. But I did some research, Janice, and on the MLS listing, there's about 180 acreages for sale in Clearwater County. And so that makes you wonder if there is a great need, or if it's that the realtors want to push for larger acreages. And certainly I want to reiterate Susan's concern for conserving agricultural land as well. I was wondering, Liz, can you put up the screen where the considerations for extra subdivisions? I was trying to write down the 4 considerations there.
I am working on putting it up.
Okay.
Marianne, just so you are aware, these slides, I believe, are available on the county's website, so you don't have to rush to scratch everything down. That they're available publicly.
Okay, well, then I can.
I'm still happy to share, but just
okay.
so you know.
Okay.
Is it this one that you were looking for, or this one?
This one right here.
Okay.
The demand for additional subdivisions.
There you go. I'll make it bigger.
Diversify ag industry. Okay. Underutilization of farmland for ag production. Okay, got it. And increased estate planning. Got it.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Liz.
No problem. That was easy. Out of all the requests in the world, I can do that one.
Are there any additional comments or questions, folks? Well, perhaps if there are no additional comments, questions, we can probably close this out. Staff is available to take comments or questions at any time. If you'd like to call in, we can certainly have any conversations or answer any questions that you might have about the MDP. So I guess with that then, thank you once again for taking time out of your schedules and giving up the beautiful night that's out there right now and joining us to take part in this meeting.